When it comes to sim racing, immersion isn't just about graphics and frame rates. It's about feeling connected, feeling like you're actually in the car. That connection comes from more than just a wheel and pedals. It comes from the subtle details, the flicker of lights, the shake of the chassis when you lock up. It's the feedback you feel, not just what you see and hear. Motion, haptics, lighting, all these layers work together to trick your brain into believing. And for a lot of us, that starts with tactile feedback. For years, the ButtKicker Gamer 2 was the go to entry point. Affordable, effective, easy to set up, but now there's the Gamer Pro, a bigger, more capable evolution of the same idea. So, in this video, we're going to put the Gamer Pro to the test. See how much it's really changed, see how much better it really is. See where it fits into the modern sim rig focused on immersion. So, when the guys at ButtKicker offered to send me the Gamer Pro, I was genuinely excited. I used to have the Gamer 2 on my old rig, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. But since I built my new rig, I've just been rocking a couple Dayton pucks, and I don't really know why upgrading the transducers hasn't been more of a priority for me, but I'm really excited to get this thing opened up and get it bolted on the rig. Alright, so I noticed almost immediately that this box seems a lot larger than the Gamer 2 box. So let's hurry up, get it opened up, check everything out so we can get it installed. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, there's the Gamer Plus and the Gamer Pro, and the big difference between the two is in the amplifier, where it drives 150 watts versus on the Gamer Plus you only get 90 watts. So this thing should have a lot more kick than we really need. Now, as usual, we'll start small, work our way up. So first off, power cable, and then there's two cables for connecting from the amplifier to the ButtKicker. And one thing with ButtKicker is they always provide you super long cables, so you could pretty much put your amplifier anywhere in your room and still reach it with these cables. Used to be that you also had to have a wired remote to control everything. They've now gone to a wireless remote, so that's a huge upgrade. There was always that big bulky corded remote on my rig, and now just having this little remote, I could stick the amplifier somewhere way more inconspicuous. And then another big thing, that this was always like a pain for everybody to have to go out and buy a third-party mount for aluminum profile rigs. Now ButtKicker is providing a 4080 mount, so obviously you're going to get a much more solid connection. I'm assuming some audio connectors, things like that, because I don't see those anywhere else. I'm going to say this is our 3.5 splitter. Yep, we've got 3.5 splitter, USB cable, other options for audio connection to the sim rig. Got a nice beefy amplifier. Oh my goodness. If you guys thought the Gamer 2 was a beast, this thing is insane. Holy cow. There's a whole lot of transducer right here. If I were to connect that 4080 mount to my house, I am pretty sure I could shake all 2 stories of my house with this thing. Now, as I mentioned, I want to talk about some of the new upgrades to the Gamer Pro from the Gamer 2. So obviously, as I said, first off, the transducer is massive. That thing is insane. But the big changes really come in how this integrates into your setup. So first off, like I said, you have a dedicated mount now, a much cleaner look with a wireless remote. The old one used to have like a cable coming out of the front to the remote. Now we're just pure wireless, which I think is awesome. But another big thing as far as integrating into your setup goes, used to be when you wanted to hook the amplifier up, you would need some kind of external sound card or another sound card option. Now they've included a USB-C port, so you can connect directly to the PC. You no longer need to go through all that trouble of either trying to find a separate 3.5 audio source. Obviously, USB is going to sound cleaner anyways, but you don't need that external 3.5 audio that is going to kind of mess that up and make it more complicated to set up. Now, what I'm curious about is I want to be able to test this through SimHub and Haptic Connect. So I'm really stoked to get that set up and see which one of those two is better, if it's really worth installing the Haptic Connect or if SimHub can drive the ButtKicker just fine on its own. If you guys are interested in shopping ButtKicker products or you're looking for other stuff for your rig, I've shared a couple affiliate links in the description. Won't cost you any extra to use them, but it absolutely helps us grow as a channel. Now let's get the ButtKicker Gamer Pro bolted on and give it a good test. At this point, I've had the Gamer Pro on the rig for about a week now, and you'll notice the transducer is at a bit of an offset angle. And I did that so that the clamp would make a solid contact with the mounting post. I tried a lot of different things to get this to feel as solid as possible. I did have, at one point, I had it straight where the clamp wasn't making full contact. I've even tried moving the post around closer to the front side of the seat and done a lot of different things to figure out where I was getting the best feedback. And ultimately, I didn't notice much difference with it being at an angle as far as like it feeling offset, but it absolutely gave more feedback into the rig and worked better. So I think ultimately this is the best setting I've found for it. Now, throughout all this testing, I've still had the amplifier sitting on the workbench. I've 3D printed a couple mounts for it, and maybe by the end of this video, I'll finally have it mounted onto the rig. Now, before I get into the software and the setup of the rig, there's one other thing I forgot to explain when I was talking about bolting this thing on and testing it, and that's that my sim rig's on the second floor of my house. The Gamer Pro is an insanely powerful transducer, especially with that big amp. So I tried to test like some sound dampening under the rig, and believe it or not, this little puck can dampen sound quite a bit. Only problem is, as soon as you start to dampen the sound more, and I'm already on carpet, you start to lose a lot of the feeling in the rig. So trying to use this, while it did help make it quieter throughout the house and stop shaking the house, wasn't very effective in giving me all the feels that I wanted. Now, as far as the software you use, you really have 2, maybe 3 options depending on the title for what software you set up the ButtKicker in. In this case, I'll start with SimHub because SimHub is honestly, if you go over here to Bass Shaker, probably the most versatile of the 3 options you have. You'll notice right now I have active engine vibration, gear shift, road impact, road rumble, and road vibration. If you don't already have tactile feedback from your pedals, then you're also going to want traction loss, wheel lock, wheel slip. Those are all good additions, and you might want to consider maybe removing a different feedback from somewhere in here so that it doesn't muddy things up too much. In my case, I do have vibration from the pedals, so I can focus more on other feedback. And the nice thing about SimHub, but also the more complicated thing about SimHub, is you'll notice there's a lot of options for settings for each individual effect. So you can not only change the effect frequency, you have your auto calibrations and thresholds, gamma factor, threshold, minimum force. I mean, there's a lot of details that go into this. Once you get the effect frequency right, then you got to balance the volume. And depending on how the feedback is, it may come through stronger or weaker than you would expect it to. It creates a lot of unknowns as you're trying to tune it. Ultimately, I think long term, once this gets dialed in, you're going to be able to get those effects exactly right. And it's really easy to connect to the ButtKicker. You just go into configure output. You can turn on, for me, the ButtKicker Pro. I'm going to select mono because I'm only using one bass shaker, and I can set it up from there. So very simple software to get working, but requires a lot more to get it to feel right. Now, if you want a simpler feedback that just works and it feels really good right out the box, doesn't require much fine tuning. If you get the Plus or the Gamer, you get Haptic Connect for free. And Haptic Connect, as you can see, I went into iRacing because that's typically what I use, is already pre-set up, and it's really good at taking all of those functions and setting them to the right intensity. You can make adjustments as needed with Haptic Connect. So as you can see, I don't have my wheel lock or wheel slip or anything off because with this software, it actually blends so well that having those on doesn't really affect it. And initially everything starts at 50. I did feel like suspension during like bottom out and things like that were a bit too intense, so I turned that down to 44. The gear shifts were a little bit violent, so I turned that down to 44. Everything else I was able to leave at 50, and it just felt good. It felt right, and I was okay with it. And it was super easy to set up. I didn't have to go in and do all the fine tuning details. Now, the third option, which works with titles like iRacing, maybe not every title is going to have this option, but because it does, I wanted to explain it. iRacing also has the option to set to your ButtKicker and basically dial in the details of the feedback you're going to get from it right here in the software in the game. So ultimately, you don't have to run a third-party software. You can just do it from game. And honestly, it feels pretty good too. I think Haptic Connect is a little bit better and it's worth the download. It's pretty lightweight. I can't see it really having that much impact on performance, but it just feels a little bit better. One of the problems with testing tactile feedback in a YouTube video is that it's something you feel. It's not really something you see, but it's something I'm going to try to show you anyways. So I've got the shifter cam hooked up, and I'm going to go ahead and start the car and let you guys just see some of the vibration that goes through the rig with the car in neutral without it even moving. So you guys will notice I placed a little handle next to the shifter and the handbrake. I was kind of hoping it would vibrate a little bit once I start the car, but right now I have the volume on the butt kicker set to 40%. So I'm nowhere near max. I haven't even hit 50. And I'm going to go ahead and start it right now and just let you hear it idle. And I'm sure on that camera right now, you'll notice the shifter vibrating a little bit and things moving. And I'm not even driving the car. This is just the engine running. And all this just to show you that even at 40%, this thing still slams. Oh yeah, and the amp's still not on the sim rig. Since I can't translate tactile feel into video, I guess the only thing I really have left is to do a lap and share with you guys how this thing really feels. And from the time I start the car, the butt kicker kicks in. I turned it down to 35% because honestly 40 is almost too aggressive and feels almost too much. So at 35%, I can feel a noticeable rumble in the engine. As I rev, everything shakes a little bit. Gives me that noticeable feeling of the engine being connected as if I was in a real car. The shift has a nice little thump, nothing too aggressive, but definitely something I can feel when I hit it. And it gives me just that touch of transmission kick. As I go over the rumble strips, it's actually really, really nice on the rumble strips. You get a really good feel there. And throughout this track, I expect to find a few spots where I can bottom out the car and get that suspension feel. But the curbs, everything's aligning very nicely. Do a little lockup. You get a nice vibration from that. All in all, there's not any delay. As things are happening, it feels exactly on point. And just that, like, little subtle things, like right now the road's a little rougher. I can feel some vibration. And as I come down into this chicane here, I can feel the tires locking up. Like, all these little details are just smooth and present, and they're subtle enough to where it just gives you the feeling of being in a real car. It's something you could forget is actually there until you really start thinking about it. But if you didn't have it, you would absolutely miss it. So trying to get a little traction lost in there. All right, well, I could get hooked on this for hours, but ultimately, every feeling you expect to feel from the shaker is definitely present. Even in the braking, as I come to a complete stop, I can feel the car rumble just a little bit. It feels so natural and so clean, and that's just using Haptic Connect. That's not even having it dialed in on SimHub. After a week of testing, I still don't know what software is best for driving the Gamer Pro. But I can say Haptic Connect is simple to set up, it's quick, and it works pretty well. I do think with dialing in SimHub, I could probably get a little bit better feedback, and that's something I'm going to work on, and I'll do an update video later. But one thing I do know for sure, compared to the Gamer 2, the Gamer Pro is a huge step up. The amount of feedback you feel, the range, everything about it is just more dynamic than what you got with the smaller transducer. And it's a lot better than what I was getting with a couple Dayton pucks. So is it worth the upgrade? Absolutely. I'm pretty confident with a bit of time, I'll get this thing dialed in and be able to share the perfect settings with you guys for SimHub and Haptic Connect. But in the meantime, I really don't know what I have planned for next week because thanks to your guys' support, I never know one week to the next whether I'm going to be testing a product or building something new for the sim rig. So you guys will just have to wait and find out. Until then, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave me a comment if this video was helpful, and I'll see you guys on the track. Oh, and don't forget to check out our affiliates. You guys and them are what make this whole thing possible.